I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
I was just catching up with Andy.
Andy, that's
Who
officially on your team.
Yeah, officially on this side of the team with me and Nancy and Phil and then we got Alize in the room and we got Nancy in the room, and so I was running late and then just flew in from Indiana last night talking to a group of pastors, and then here we are, and then I'll leave again. But and then I was in Atlanta before that, so I've been ripping and running. Today was the only day we could shoot our podcast, so I came in, and here we are today. Welcome everyone to Beyond the Letter. Like I shared, if you're watching on YouTube or anything else, you notice it's just me today, and we're gonna do a solo episode. We always get feedback that apparently people enjoy them. Is that what we hear, Nancy? That's what you guys keep telling me to do, is do more solo episodes. So I guess
Alize and I for sure.
people like to see me get upset and go on tirades and rants on stuff and not just interview or talk to people. And then we got Andy in the house and Alize in here for a little bit. And so it's great for everyone to be a part. Thanks for all the love on some of our recent podcasts, just hearing great things, great feedback of what people are enjoying. And thank you so much for sharing episodes. I can't tell you how many people tell me that they've come across Beyond the Letter because you have shared it, you have exposed someone to the conversation that we have. And for those that don't know, maybe you've been watching Beyond the Letter and you're like, I don't know what that means. Well, 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul basically encourages the church, and he says, for you are, and he's basically saying the way that they have lived their faith out. He said, for you have been the letter that is written on my heart. And so basically what he was saying is, like, as we allow our Christian faith and the Word of God to transform our heart, we live it out. And so it's beyond the letters of Scripture. Like, our lives go beyond that to live it out in that sense. And so that's what Beyond the Letter is. And, and as always, we always discuss a multitude of things. So what I thought was I would talk about, and Nancy threw out some ideas, and I thought, oh, okay, not in those ideas, but I caught the rhythm of what people were asking for. She shared stuff of like things that, people comment, message that they're interested in, and particularly more so about me. But regardless, I thought, okay, well, I will do something that I think is something that I've done over the years, particularly with men, and I thought maybe I'd expose it to everybody because I don't necessarily disciple women because I just think that those boundaries have to be a little bit more apparent nowadays. And so, so I do. I pour into men, young men, no matter, older men, and I do that because I've had great mentorship and discipleship in my life. And so I've just tried to replicate what I've been shown, whether it be through my father, mentors like Gerald Brooks, Joel Home, seasoned saints in my life that I grew up with, like Robert Thompson, John Chappelle. These are all men of God who poured into my life and led by example and set examples. And I think when it comes to my work ethic, career, life, a lot of some of it would be knowledge, intellect, ability. A lot of other things is just being prepared in life with life skills. Like that is a big part of a person's success. And the amount of times I hear from people that struggle with, I struggle at work talking to people. I struggle sharing my ideas. I struggle with, showing up on time. I struggle with clarity of, passion and calling and all these things. And I hear it from all ages, right? And so what I thought I'd do is it's actually something that I'm working on. And I'm working on this because everywhere that I go, I just came back from Georgia, and we were meeting with a group of leaders and pastors. And one of the common questions was, and it's a fact, there's a large hiring institution specifically for churches called Vanderbloemen, and they help churches, find staffing for roles and stuff like that. But I'm also aware of what's going on in corporate America right now. What like a lot of people and employers and things like that are finding is that Gen Z isn't necessarily prepared for life skills. So they go to school, they get a job, they get a degree. Well, they get a degree, they get a job, they start the job, but yet they lack life skills to succeed at that job. Where back in the day, you would learn life skills. You would learn life skills through mom and dad. You would learn life skills. School taught a lot of life skills as well. And a lot of that stuff has waned and put like a big priority on just kind of performance and knowledge. But then what happens is all these aspects of budgeting and finance and career and habits, disciplines, all that stuff like that is lacking. And so what most employers, like whether it's in a church or outside the church, they're all trying to figure out. Basically, they call it reparenting in the workforce. Is like with Gen Z. Gen Z has to be reparented when they join a job because a lot of parents didn't do what they were supposed to do in terms of prepare their children for taking care of themselves. Like getting a job. Number one, you're not always going to love the job that you have, and number two, you're going to have a job because you want to need to take care of yourself. You want to have a life, and there is kind of this misconception with the next generation that the first job that they do, they're gonna, or the first 4 jobs they do, they're gonna love it, and it's gonna be the greatest thing in the world, and it's not. I mean, there's times you're gonna have to work a job and get some experience and learn some things and fall and fail and all these things like that, and you may need to get fired once or twice to learn some valuable lessons or whatever else that may be, and so that's all part of growth, but what most people are talking about is like, what does it look like to reparent the next generation when they step into the career field? And frankly, Gen Z, they're willing to it. They want it. They just weren't taught it. And so a lot of workforces and even churches were saying like, well, they just, if they don't know, if they don't have life skills, they're just not going to work out for us. But the amount that are coming in without life skills is so loud that most people are going, how do we address this? How do we do it? So here's what I say. I talk to adults who struggle with the practical life skills to succeed in life, but really for the next generation. So I thought what I would do is something I'm actively working on is like a curriculum that we would take young people through, specifically that join our team in the future. And it's fresh thoughts. So I'm like still working on it, but I'm going to give ahead of time of some things that I'm working on that are important life skills that everyone should have when it comes to approaching not just their job, but life. And so this isn't, there's so much more that could be said, but I'm working through it. You got to know I'm working through it through the lens of you give me a young person and I want them to succeed in the workforce. Okay, that's the premise. It's not like just succeed in life and all that, because there's so much other things that I would have part of that. What I would want them to do is let's just say my sons, Matthias and Thomas, they're getting ready to graduate college. What would Adam tell them? Hey, if you're going to succeed, if you want promotions, if you want raises, if you want to be entrepreneur, start your own business, whatever, like here are some kind of 4 distinctives that I think that you should have that would set you up for success. And these are things that I think that I have personally tried to consciously walk through. Some things I've been good at in my life, some things I haven't, but they're all very conscious for me of things that I'm aware of that I need to work on. So this podcast today is for maybe you're young, you're in high school, college, young adult, and you're saying, I want to apply these things right away. I'm going to give them to you. Maybe you're a little older and you find yourself struggling, moving up, whether it be in your career or anything like that. These may help you if you start to apply some of these things. These might right away start to get you some access. You may be a business owner. A lot of business owners watch our podcast. Man, this is something you can steal and start taking new people through your organization. Or you're a parent and you're like, hey, to me, I got a 4-year-old and I'm already thinking, what do I do to prepare him? Like my son, my oldest is 7, he's 10 years away from being 17. I think of that stuff very fast because for me, life has moved incredibly fast. My oldest being 7 felt like yesterday he was a baby. And I talk to people who their kids are 16, 17, 18, and they'll tell me, cherish this moment because it went by so fast. And so I'm aware that it goes fast. So I'm already thinking, all right, what can I do now at this age? Like even in our home, that established discipline, because that's going to bleed into their life one day that will set them up for success, you know? And so those are things that I'm processing, but also I lead an organization, and frankly, I'm tired of, Gen Z people failing in the workforce. I hear it all the time. We experience it all the time. Young people just are struggling to thrive in the workplace, and that's just not my case. That is like data across the board. And so I want to help. I love the next generation. So I want to be able to offer some help to them, to you, if you're listening. And also if you're a leader of the next generation, I want to offer some help on how you can help them. Now they have to want the help. That's up to them. They have to want to apply it. That is up to them. But if they get this and they apply it, I think that they will succeed. And so basically I've broken it into, if you think, eventually one day, because I'm thinking of this in some type of curriculum form, and hopefully one day we'll make this available to everyone once I finalize it, is if you think of like a pie graph and you think of 4 quarters, so 4 quadrants, that's basically what it'd be. So it'd be quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. You could take someone through this through a year journey, so basically once a month. But if you look at once a month for a couple hours, you would take an employee, or what I would do for my kids is potentially, I would break this up over, whatever, a few years or something like that. Or what I'm going to do is I'm compositing it to you guys today in under an hour. So there's that as well. So here's quarter 1 is what I would teach in terms of life skills is number 1, I would teach a personal foundation. All right, so this first starts with the individual. I mean, before we can deal with anything else, we got to deal with your foundation, mastering yourself, creating disciplines for yourself. All right, so this is really critical because anyone that doesn't have a personal foundation or personal disciplines will never have what I would say is public disciplines, whether that's in the workplace or anything else. Very rarely will you ever meet someone who thrives in a workplace and lacks any disciplines in their private life. They tend to not connect. They always tend to connect. They don't disconnect. And so what will happen is we will think that we could have a personal life that has a disarray of foundation, and then be able to go at work and crush it and thrive and all these things like that. What happens is where you're at in your most private moments, where you're at when no one's around, what your space looks like, whether it's your dorm, your condo, your apartment, whatever, how those disciplines are, what you do all day and in the morning when you don't have to work, that basically prepares you for your work. And I'll go into more of that in a few moments, but a lot of people are overwhelmed, not because of their job, it's because they're trying to do 20 other things outside of their job that have nothing to do with putting food on their table. So therefore, they're exhausted and they lack discipline. And it's not a job problem, it's a personal problem, and that's what happens. And so what I would teach is I would talk about mastering yourself. And here's what I would talk about during those times. If I was sitting with someone, I would talk about character. So character is everything about who you are when no one's looking, what you're about when no one's looking. If you could lie for benefit, would you do it? If you could cheat for benefit, would you do it? If you could throw someone under the bus for benefit, would you do it? If the answer is yes, that's a character issue. And there is nothing I can do with your life until your character is of good standing, that you consciously are aware that everything you do represents your character. One of the things I would tell my sons is, if I was in the room or out of the room, you should act the same way. And maybe you've heard that before by your dad before at some point. The way I look at it, because I'm a person of faith, is whether Jesus was standing in front of me or not standing in front of me, would I do the same things? Would I act the same way? And if the answer is no, if Jesus was standing here, I would probably act a lot differently, then that's a character issue, because really Jesus is there at all times. And so I need to be awareness of that. And so I would be looking at character. We would talk about character, what that looks like. We would talk about discipline. That's routines. Okay. So in that, when we were talking about routines, I would talk about that you need routines in your life. And if you don't have routines, you need to get them. And I'll go more into routines later on as well. But we would talk about what healthy disciplines look like, what healthy routines look like. We would talk about two other things within the foundational health is emotional health, getting in control of your emotions. Today, a lot of people live their emotions on their sleeve. A lot of people, frankly, we have allowed social media to, basically defilter us. And so therefore we live on social media. We say what we want. We comment what we want. We act how we want. We live behind a keyboard half the time. And so therefore we think that we're protected by anonymity. We think we're protected by a fake username that we have in the comment section or a burner account or something like that. And so therefore your emotional health, the way that you talk with individuals, the way that we act in terms of our emotions, we don't have any control over them. We've allowed every single situation to take control of our emotions. And so some of the things that what would happen is when you look at emotional health is you want to be able to run in your head. For me, I'm processing through with my sons moments that make them angry, moments that make them sad, moments that make them passionate, moments that make them feel embarrassed, and we talk about them. And then if my son's shut down or angry, that happened today. My youngest got to wear an Army man costume to his preschool for like a Halloween week thing, and then my oldest, his school didn't let them wear costumes, and so my oldest is mad. And he's purposely making everything difficult. And so normally he brushes his teeth, he does his own hair, he gets himself ready. Now he's saying, oh, I can't, I'm tired, I'm sleepy. But really he's mad. He's just like throwing a fit. And so we had a moment where I paused and we're like, hey, listen, we got to talk about this. Like, your brother is younger. His school has a different rule. You can't get your way. You kicking and screaming like this, if you have a complaint, go tell your school the complaint. So we had to have a conversation that's like, hey, we can't control your circumstance, son. Talk to us because this fit right now isn't going to happen. Well, there's 25-year-olds, there's 40-year-olds, there's 50-year-olds who need that same conversation. Hey, you didn't get your way. You can't shut down right now. You can't make everyone's life difficult. You can't all of a sudden make everyone pay for your lack of whatever or what's happened to you, and things at times are unfair, but that doesn't mean that's an excuse to affect now your character and also affect your disciplines. So many times what happens when our emotional health isn't well, we have daily disciplines that are healthy for us. You get your heart moving, you go to the gym, you make sure that you're kept up. There's a lot of things I do with young guys is like when young guys are being mentored by me, they have to have their beard trimmed, they have to have their beard shaved. If they're ever around me and their beard isn't shaved, if their shirt isn't ironed, I call it out. Like I have no problem because to me, those daily disciplines speak to how people respect you, how you position yourself in a conversation, how you appropriately are respected by other people. And so for me, like, those are the things that I deal with, even my sons today. I have a 7 and 4-year-old. Every single day, we iron their clothes. We iron everything. They put it on themselves. And then they get to pick one of the colognes, and then they spray a cologne. And then our oldest, now at 7 already, he already got to have deodorant. He's got to put his own deodorant. And then what happens is they can't do anything else. They can't go jump on the TV. They can't do anything until all their stuff is finished. And, in a couple more years, Matthias is going to have to start ironing his own clothes every single morning. And so we don't let the boys go to school with wrinkled clothes. I don't do that because I'm like anal. I do that because I want them to see that how we present ourselves matters. How we take care of the things that we have matters. When my sons throw their iPads, I make them go get it back and set it down. And you hang around us, we're not really strict parents. We're like tons of fun. Like, our household is full of fun, full of goofing off. But there are moments to me that I know that are important. That's like, hey, if I let this happen, it's going to bleed into who they are in the future. And they're going to wonder one day why they aren't succeeding. And they're not going to know it's because of this personal foundation that mom and dad allowed them to do whatever they want. And so we try to, as best as possible, have a balance in our household, raising specifically for us young men, this balance between being full of fun, full of joy, full of memories, while also understanding that I'm going to be raising young men who are going to have to go into society and are going to have to probably one day take care of a family. And so it starts here. It starts at this age, is the disciplines that they have. And any of you can start that journey at any point, even with yourself. So do you read books? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you go on the gym and get your heart rate going? Depending on what age you are, it'd be a good time to start looking at, what do supplements look like? What does my heart health look like? What does my diet look like? All that kind of stuff that adds to things, and that'll add to your disciplines, and that adds to personal foundation. And then lastly, time management. When I would talk about building a foundational life, is being aware of time. What does time look like? When do you wake up? When do you go to bed? When do you show up to things? If you ever watch Beyond I Do, it's important to me. And what I've talked about with Ashley before is being on time is extremely important to me. And here's why being on time is important to me, because when I'm late, that means people are waiting on me, And so if I'm waiting on people, it is what it is. That's on them. But when people are waiting on me, then I don't like that. I don't like that I'm running behind and people are just sitting around and that's stopping things. I try as best as possible. And if I'm not, I try to communicate why I'm not going to be there on time and what has happened and things like that. And so for the next generation, being on time is important. And you'll see a lot of time with the next generation is there's not really, because everything is so digitized and conversations are digitized. It's just kind of like, it is what it is. I can always answer through a text message. I can always respond through an email. So what does it really matter to start this meeting on time? What does it really matter? There's things that, like, I'll go speak at a church and the service starts at 9. It says it on paper. It starts at 9, and maybe it'll start at 9:10, 9:15 or whatever. And they say that it's going to go an hour and a half or hour 20, and then it goes to an hour and 45. And then after, the pastor may ask me, hey, is there anything you think we can do better? And I say, honestly, you could stick to your times. That would be great. Not for me. I'm fine. I'm a guest. But there are people that they plan their lives. Now, if God moved and service goes longer, that's fine. But it's like, hey, is this a weekly thing? Do you guys always start late? Do you always go over? Oh, yeah, pretty often. Like, well, the chances are that you're going to meet someone that has a disciplined lifestyle that's going to want to stick around is not very likely. Somebody who their time means something to them, like, they're not going to hang around long. They're not going to be around you long because they can't count on you to be on time. And so often what I'll do, even with mentors, if I say, hey, do you have 10 minutes of time that I can get from you? And they say, yeah, I try to finish the conversation in 8 minutes. And if they want to take the conversation longer, that's up to them. But I always try to respect people's time, always try to be aware of people's times as best as possible, because that foundation does matter. Here's the second quarter. Now, I could talk more and more on that forever. And again, remember, like, for me, this stuff's going to be a curriculum, and it's going to have a whole process of stuff that we go through, and it's personal growth and how do you grow personally, and disciplines. We talk about reading and, key suggested books that you could read as a young person that will, grow your personal development and stuff like that. And so I'll get to more of that later on. But here's what I would talk about would be quadrant number 2. This is a big one, is relational foundation. And so what this one would be is, how do you build healthy relationships? How do you maintain healthy relationships? A lot of people struggle today with having good relationships. So what does it look like to communicate? What does it look like to do things as a team? What does it look like to have conflict resolution, which a lot of people struggle with today? They do not know how to have conflict. They do not know how to disagree with one another. They do not know how to deal with disagreement. And then lastly, boundaries. When do you put up boundaries? What's the right time to put boundaries up? And how do we approach that? And so what we would cover is, and these are big, because here's what's happening is, when it comes to communication and relationships, especially in the workforce, a lot of people are giving up their voice for, like, ChatGPT's voice, and it's apparent. and it's dehumanizing everyone. And here's what's going to happen. Here's the big separation that's going to take place is you're going to have individuals that sound eloquent in emails, Slacks, and text messages, and then in person, they're going to sound dumb. And what will happen is you will see workforces go more into in-person meetings because they can't tell what's AI or what's not. Because what a lot of people are doing is they're taking someone's email and then saying, give me a responsive disagreement. They're not even writing something out and having their own grammar checks. They're just letting AI write their whole email, their whole message and stuff like that. And it dehumanizes. And then therefore you just have robots talking to robots, because when the other person is using AI, now you're just having two inanimate objects speaking to each other, and you just have humans that are just hitting prompt, prompt, prompt. And where's the humanity? And then very little things are being accomplished because what's happening is now everyone's just trying to sound like William Shakespeare and one up each other in the way that they respond to one another digitally. And so what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of meetings and a lot of things. The person who is going to be the most valuable is the person who knows how to articulate themselves in person, who knows how to speak in person. That is a person who's going to have an advantage, because when you have artificial intelligence replacing everyone's messaging, then the people who fully rely on that with now no verbal communication, when the moments are that they need to verbally communicate, even in their home, you even have husbands saying, help me write an I love you message to my wife, and that's it. And then they're just copying and pasting. You're losing the heart, you're losing the humanity. And so then therefore what you're doing is the more you do that, like a calculator is great. They're phenomenal. But when you have to show your worker actually do math, I got a son that's in school and he has to do math. And honestly, because I use a calculator for everything, when he's doing math homework, I don't know how to do what he does anymore. I forgot because I don't have to show my work anymore. I just use a calculator for everything. And so you're going to find a lot of people who are giving up their ability to communicate well to an artificial intelligence. When they actually do have to communicate, they're going to be even worse at it, and they're going to not know how to do it. And so there's going to be a premium on people who know how to talk. And so I would watch videos on public communication. You should watch videos on TEDx talks on how do you communicate. You should try to communicate in person as often as possible. Take more phone calls, move to more phone calls rather than just text messages, so that you can have an upper hand in communication. And so written, verbal, and digital are all going to change. And so verbal, I think, is going to have a premium. And so for me, what's really big is with my sons raising a 7 and a 4-year-old is I make them talk for themselves. So when we go to a restaurant, even the 4-year-old, he's got to order his own food. He's got to order his own drink. They have to say, yes, ma'am, no, sir, please, thank you. When they don't, I say, hey, sir, sorry, could you stay right here for a second? What do you say, Thomas? Oh, sorry, Dad. Thank you so much for my Sprite. Because that communication is going to go everywhere. I don't order for them. Like the moment you could start talking, the moment you know what you want to eat, man, you order it. And there's been every once in a while our son's like, oh, I'm embarrassed, I don't want to. I said, well, I guess you're not going to eat. I guess you're not going to get food. I don't know what to tell you, son. And I'm not doing that just as this harsh dad or whatever. It's for me, it's son. One of my sons is more of an introvert, but hey, I'm an introvert. You got to learn still how to talk. That's not an excuse. And if you want to thrive, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. And even extroverts, getting out of their comfort zone is working by themselves, being alone. Everybody has their own challenge, Introverts love being alone. They don't like being in groups. That's a struggle. Extroverts don't like being alone. They like to be in groups. They both struggle. It's about getting out of your comfort zone. And so that's one of the things that I would work with, is what that looks like. Conflict resolution and difficult conversations. And so what I would do is role play difficult conversations. I would have people break up in groups and say, hey, right now in your group, here's the problem that we're facing. We're facing X, Y, and Z. You're on the side where you're the one who caused the problem. The other person, you're on the side where you're on the receiving end of the problem. I want you guys to communicate the resolution, find a resolution to this problem. And now I would break people up in groups and I would have them role play conflict resolution. If I was doing some type of marriage counseling with this practice, what I would do is I would say, hey, here's a conflict resolution moment. You keep asking him to put the toilet seat down. He keeps forgetting. I want you right now, guys, conflict resolution. I want you to role play. And I think for average married couple, it wouldn't be role play. It would just be real life. But I would say role play this situation. And as an outside entity, I will speak into how you guys are resolving conflict and how I can make some suggestions on maybe some better verbiage, right? Some better verbiage to win people over. Because if you're in the workplace, everything is about, there's a great book called Winning Others. Like, you want to win people and you want to influence people. And so Maxwell has great stuff like that on Leader 360. Like, you want to read books like that help you in leadership, that help you in communication, because then what happens is the more people that can be better with conflict resolution, the more people that are valuable on the team. Because there's a lot of people that are in drama and cause drama, but there aren't a lot of people who know how to resolve drama. And so if you could be good at conflict resolution, you're valuable within that organization and within that space. And talking through those difficult conversations. And so giving some practical things of what does a difficult conversation, what does conflict resolution look like? Conflict resolution looks like saying, hey, I understand where you're coming from. If you caused the problem, it's saying, hey, I apologize that I showed up late to that meeting and that it caused, a backup in a certain thing. Here's what happened. I take full ownership of it. I apologize. And here's what I'm going to do differently next time. That's what conflict resolution is. My team knows what really gets me upset is if something goes wrong and no one takes ownership of it. Like, that's what gets under my skin really fast. I have forgiveness for days when someone pulls me aside or sends an email and say, hey, Adam, I'm so sorry. Here's what went wrong. I know I caused it. I apologize. It's not going to happen again, or I promise I'll do better next time. I have forgiveness all day. What I'm not good with is when people go, well, if blank didn't happen, man, no, blank had nothing to do with this. What are you doing? Just take ownership of it. Like, you caused it. It was from your mistake. You are not going to look better by just pawning it off to somebody else. That's not going to happen. Anyone who is a good leader or manager is not going to reward someone who doesn't take ownership. And so I could not encourage the next generation enough. Do not pawn off problems to other people. Take the hit, take ownership. And guess what? If it results in being released, if it results in being written up, take it on the chin. You were a part of it. That's what will happen. But I'll tell you this more than ever, most great leaders, if you're under a great leader or you're working for a great organization that you love, they will look at you more highly when you take ownership. And so for me, what's big with art, once again, because I'm trying to raise sons that are ready for this. And even, I got this stuff from my dad and my mentors is like, we don't do lying. We don't do passing the buck. That doesn't happen. There's grace for days when you own things and admit things, but there's not when you are clearly in the wrong and you still refuse to own it. Just own it. One of my friends who's a pastor, that's his family motto is own it. And he's got sons, one's 20, one's 17, and their family motto is just own it. Hey, if you're succeeding, own it. Thank God, give God glory, own it. Appreciate that God's showing you favor. If you fail, own it. That's it. Like, you will see how far you go if you just start owning things. Own the things that you have, own your work gives you a work computer, own it. Take care of it. Look after it. Your job gives you a desk, own it. Take care of your desk. Make it look nice. Make it look appropriate. Don't throw clutter everywhere. Just own everything that you have, and all of that will build within healthy relationships in the workplace. Here's a fourth thing that I would talk about. Well, I would talk about a third thing, which would be working under authority and serving on a team. And so what does it look like to have a boss? What does it look like to have a manager? What's appropriate to do for them? Always respect them, always honor them. Don't criticize them publicly. If you have anything critical, talk to them privately. If they don't receive the criticism, it's not a church. And so therefore, Matthew 18 is different. So if there is, depending on the workplace, but if there's a manager hire or an HR, go to HR if it's something that's actually not policy allowed. But for the most part, you don't like a decision your authority made, manager your authority made, that's going to happen. But you are not going to win in that relationship if you're in the water cooler criticizing everything that they're doing. That's not, and even if you do get a one up, and let's just say you, through your criticism and your gossip, you got your boss fired and now you have their role, you have set a lesson to everyone around that they're going to do the same for you. You're just going to replicate whatever you sowed. So if you got the job if you got them out because you talked down on this and that, you did whatever, you're going to exactly reap what you've sowed. So it's a dangerous endeavor to do regardless. And so always be full of honor. One of my mentors always said, public honor creates private leverage. Public honor creates private leverage. So when you honor someone publicly, you speak well of someone publicly, then what happens is privately you have leverage to share your concerns. But when you do not honor people publicly, and then you do the opposite, and then privately you want to create some type of leverage, they hear it, they see it, they know what's going on, it's not going to happen. And so having a boss and having a manager and navigating that is important to learn for the next generation. Because a lot of the next generation, they're used to everything and everyone needs to be a mutual, a homie, I'm doing you a favor because I'm here type of thing. And then they get fired or let go. And then they're like, oh my goodness, my car payment, blah, blah, blah. What happened? Call your homie, your old boss, you treated him like a mutual, or you treated her like a mutual. Like, what happened? You didn't honor, you didn't respect the authority that you have. Over my years in my life, I've had terrible bosses. I've had horrible managers. But no one would know in my organization that I felt that way. There were specifically when I was younger in ministry, I had this manager that was the worst. I mean, they were just absolutely terrible. They were mean. They were critical. They were judgmental. Nobody liked working under them. And just a couple years ago, I spoke about an instance that they said something really inappropriate to me and a group of employees, and I said it to my dad, who used to be our boss. And my dad said, why didn't you ever tell me? And I said, well, because I didn't tell you because honestly, he was my boss. He was my authority. If I told you, you weren't going to remove him as my authority. And so therefore it would have just made my life worse. Why would I have done that? Now, if there was some type of review system, which we didn't have back then, where you can review your manager and you can share that stuff with anonymity, I would have been happy to do that. But I'm like, me just all of a sudden throwing him under the bus and then you get rid of him, and then more than likely, I'd probably would have had his role. Like, I told my dad, I'm not down for that. That's not the way that I want to be promoted in life. I don't want to be promoted in life by getting rid of someone. That's like David and Saul. Like, David had opportunities to kill Saul, but he waited on God's time till it was the time for David to become king. And that's a lesson within that, is you may have the authority to knock someone off of their leadership role, but that doesn't mean if you do it that you're going to have favor. If you're going to have that role, if you operate in integrity, you will get that role regardless. You will be seen, you will be honored through God's favor. And if you're not, it's because God has a greater plan. And so lastly, what I would do is within this healthy relationships is I would understand personality types. We're all different. And the more that you can understand that everybody is wired differently and has different personality types, the more that you can understand where a person is coming from. The more that you can understand, are they introvert, are they extrovert, are they passive or are they dominant? Are they complementary or are they serving? And the more that you know that, the more that you know where a person's coming from and where they're, and so there's like DISC tests and Enneagram and all that kind of stuff like that. That stuff is important. It's important for people to understand one another on where their personality type and where their gift mix is, because then I know where they're coming from. A person may not have a strong dominant spirit. And so therefore, what they need to work at is communicating more clearly, letting their opinion known. If someone's a little bit more dominant, what they need to work on is, hey, you need to shut up sometimes. Let other people speak in the room. And so we all have our strengths and our weaknesses within our personality types. And so the more that a next-gen person in the workplace could understand, oh, this is my personality type. This is other people's personality types. These are my strengths and these are my weaknesses. Okay, that'll help me be more empathetic towards other people. That'll also make me aware of why I maybe need to shut up more or why I need to talk more. And then what will happen is the more that you're working on your strengths and weaknesses, you will see that becomes this favor with relationships with other people. And so here's quarter 3. Okay, I'm going to get through these ones pretty fast. So we went through personal foundation. We went through the relational foundation. Then we would go into the professional foundation. What every Gen Z person and really anyone needs to understand is that what it means to have a work ethic, what it means to work in excellence, and how do I develop as a leader. And so wherever you go, understand it's not about a workplace adapting to your culture. It's about you adapting to their culture and their expectations. One of the biggest things that you could ever have as a gift for someone in any workplace is take initiative and help solve problems. That's what your role is. Your role is initiative and problem solving. Unless you have a role where every day your job is exactly the same and you do the same thing day in and day out, if it's not something like that, then what happens is where you matter and where you really begin to show yourself as someone that's valuable on the team is when you are taking initiative and you are problem solving. And so there may be seasons where, there's been seasons in my life where, my bosses have said, hey, I really want to do this. We really need to do this. Anyone want to help with it? I'll be the first person to raise my hand. Yeah, I'll help with it. And then I'll be, hey, honest, I don't know a lot about doing that, but if someone will teach me or if there's somewhere I can learn it, I'm happy to do it, but I'll do it. I'm happy. I just want to make you aware right now, I don't have an expertise in that, but if no one will raise their hand, I'll do it, Or, hey, we've been having this issue in our workplace and I just want to submit, I kind of have this idea for this. I have a friend that works for like a media company that recently did this. He's a lawyer and he's in a whole other department, but he pitched problem solving to get more Christian faith movies made, and because they were solving a problem of basically reshoots. It was costing millions of dollars when scenes were inappropriate to reshoot the movie or whatever to get a lower rating, like you got PG-13, rated R, all that. And he basically threw this pitch and was like, hey, here's a problem we keep having. We keep spending X amount of millions of dollars on reshoots, and here's my suggestion is that if we focus more on faith-based content, we don't ever reshoot faith-based content because it's always within the appropriate guidelines. And so therefore, you would make just as much money, but you would also save more money in the reshoots. And they tripled the budget that he was requesting for a totally different department. And now he's doing incredibly well. He's one of the highest reviewed people in his company right now because he's taken initiative and he helped problem solve something that had nothing to do with him. And then they didn't say, oh, hey, you go run that. They said, hey, thank you so much. And now on the back end, they've recognized it and they've seen it. Why? Because that's solving a problem that he had an idea for that could be a solution, and his leadership team agreed with it. And so one of the things people want to understand, because people nowadays were like, I want recognition. I hear it all the time. When people maybe go somewhere else, maybe they move or leave, working for us or whatever. I hear it all the time. It's just like, I wasn't recognized a lot. That has it all the time. I hear it all the time. I just wasn't recognized a lot. And number one, your recognition is on the 1st and the 15th. That's your first recognition. When that stops hitting your bank account, then you really haven't been recognized. But if you're talking about you've done your job that you were hired for, you don't necessarily need recognition for that. You are being paid to do what you're doing. Now, if you want recognition comes from taking initiative and problem solving. And so my question to someone that would say, I'm just not being, like if my sons came home and I'm like, how's work, son? And he's like, man, I don't know, Dad. I just feel like I'm not being recognized by my boss or by my job. My first question would be, have you solved any of their problems? What problems do they have at your job, and have you solved any of them for them? No, Dad, I'm doing my job good. Well, yeah, son. And as far as I understand, they're paying you, right? Yeah. Well, great. They believe you are doing your job because you still have your job. You're being recognized for every day that they've still kept you on their payroll. they are recognizing you because you did your job. The day that they take you and they say, hey, you're no longer good here, you need to leave the company, you've stopped providing value. So you are providing value, but you're looking for recognition, and recognition may be high fives, compliments, raises, bonuses, time off, et cetera, whatever's above and beyond within that company's workplace culture. My first question would say, how have you solved problems? My second question to my son would be, have you taken initiative above what they've asked you to do? Well, if I go above what they asked to do, they better pay me for it. They better, man, come on, son. If all of that is that way, then I'm telling you right now, you will never move up. You will never be recognized. If you are playing a tick for tack game, now if all of a sudden they've come to you and they've asked you to do 9 jobs with no raise, no bonus, no opportunity, then don't take it. And you're right. You might be being abused in that way. But if you're doing your job and they're paying you for it, and they haven't asked you to do any new stuff, like big new stuff, or they've just asked you for a season to help during a transitional period with another employee, you're just doing your part on the team. Everybody on a team has to do their part at some point, and parts of the job are not fun. You talk to a professional athlete, they don't love every minute of what they do for a living. There are parts of your job I know professional athletes, I pastored professional athletes. Everyone, all of them differently, don't like what they do in different ways. Some don't like the recovery phase because they have to get stretched and massaged and go in the cold plunge. Some of them hate that phase. Others hate the practice phase because they got to go to practice and it's exhausting and they got to do it twice a day and then they got to sit with a nutritionist and all. Others don't like the game day because the rigorous day or whatever, but they do it because they like the reward. They like the pay, they like what they're doing, and so there are parts of your job you're not going to enjoy. So for me, for my son, it's like, hey, you want recognition, take initiative and solve problems. And then given enough time, I promise you, they probably will start giving you more recognition than you've ever imagined. And if they don't, then guess what? You have more experience to put on your resume for a future job that pays more. So it's a win-win. Don't be afraid to transition to somewhere else and say yes to stuff, even if it's unpaid, because that's more stuff you can put on your LinkedIn bio. That's more opportunities you could say of the value that you've had. And then the last thing I would say in personal foundation is having professionalism, maintaining composure, maintaining language. If you're at the workplace, I know it's very easy just to put your guard down and, what's up, homie? What's up, boss? Dap up, this and that, kick your feet up, but always be professional. Show up, dress professionally, present yourself professionally, take care of yourself, do your hair, take care of your facial hair. If you're a guy, if you're a girl, dress appropriately, dress in a way that resembles leadership, all that kind of stuff like that. Use professionalism when it comes to your emails, your messages, take accountability for things. And what will happen is you'll start to gain confidence in the workplace and much more competencies in a daily way, And then, so here's the last one, which to me is the most important, whether you're in a church or you're not. But just to recap as I close this is we talk about personal foundation, relational foundation, professional foundation, and then lastly, what I would call is spiritual and purpose foundation. And so this is where you start to live your life and your work with purpose, not just to pay bills so that you can go to Disneyland, on a day off, and have some money, pocket money. That's good when you're more at, like entry level, minimum wage jobs, you're coming out of school, college, you're starting up, all that stuff. But at some point you want to be in a career that you feel you have purpose, and also that your spiritual life is informing your purpose in that way. Because what will happen is I talk to more and more people that are like in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they've done really well. They've made a good living. They make a great salary, and they just say, but I've lost purpose. I don't know why I'm doing. And a lot of them will even take massive pay reductions just to go work somewhere where they feel they have more of a purpose behind it. It fulfills their spiritual life. It's something if you become a talented and gifted person in the workplace, you will always be able to go somewhere that will offer more and give you better. There's always that availability. If you are succeeding, if you do all the things that I shared and you move up and you have professionalism and you solve you will always be valuable. And so what happens is you will always have opportunity to go to the next, go to more, get more, make more, all that stuff. But the question is, does it feed your spiritual life? Because every decision you make is going to impact your marriage. If you have kids, it's going to impact your kids. Is this the right move for them? Is this the right decision for your family? It may be more money. It may be more opportunity, but is it the right time? I've had people tell me before that they've got offered jobs twice their income, but because it would cause them to move in a new state and their kids are thriving in their local church and their family's thriving, they've turned it down because they're like, our priority right now is our faith because we've recently given our life to Christ. And developing our faith is far more important than our finances right now. It's like, that's big. That's awareness of, hey, my spiritual life is way more important right now than getting my next, what we would say is your next nut if you were a squirrel, like getting just more for the tree. We would all love more. We all need more finances. But for a lot of people, you start to get to a point that goes, man, I want to be somewhere that I know I'm going to make an impact. Recently, I was talking to a friend that's a successful business person, got offered paid double their salary at a company in the same city almost. And he said, man, it's tough because I love my coworkers. I love my manager. I love my job. I love what I'm doing. So there's nothing wrong. It would just be more money. And he goes, and I don't know if I go there, will I love my coworkers? Will I love my manager? Will they have expectations that all of a sudden come out of nowhere because they're paying me a certain salary? And ultimately he decided right now I'm not going to take it because he's like, I like the rhythms I have with my family, my kids, my sports, my church. I don't know what those rhythms are going to look. I'm content. What am I doing? And literally it's me and I pastored him through it. Like we're just talking together. Like, why is it that I want more? Why is it that I need more? You know, is it because I'm going to be able to upgrade my car or upgrade my house? Is that really what it's about? Is it, yeah, it might create a little bit more financial freedom, but probably not because it's still a hard job and they're still going to require X, Y, and Z out of me. And so what was happening was his desire for purpose and his spiritual life informed his decision making. It informed his decision on what would be next, what he would stay through, what would happen. And so what happens is we highly undervalue being aware of like what our calling is, what our purpose is. And we overvalue like just newness. Oh, it's new, it's new, it's new, it's new. It's like, yeah, maybe a new shiny toy, a new shiny car, a new shiny job. But even at some point that will become mundane. Every new car becomes an old car at some point. Every new car smell fades away. Every new house doesn't feel new anymore. Everything. And so it's being aware that, hey, I'm not going to be controlled by just newness. I'm going to be controlled by what I know God has called me to do. Is what I'm doing giving me purpose? Does it give me the rhythms that I like between family, bills, play, enjoyment, back in the foundation about emotional intelligence and mental health. That's that personal foundation. That's where I would talk about healthy rest rhythms and what does it look like to rest and spend time with family and all that kind of stuff like that. And so the spiritual purpose, it goes back to personal foundation because then you will end up back in that state of like, all right, in your spiritual life, how are you investing into your personal life when it comes to your spiritual development? Because what happens is if you are connected with God's purpose for your life, you can be at peace with the seasons that you're in and have clarity from God. When are the right seasons to do what you do? When can you have favor in the workplace to go for that promotion or go for that new role? Have I done everything I need to do so that I could be recognized and have the favor of God and favor of man over my life? And so in the spiritual, it's spiritual disciplines. What does your life look like in prayer? What does your word time in the Bible look like? What does your time look like with worship? Carry disciplines when it comes to your relationship with God, because what will happen is the closer you are with the presence of God, the more clarity you will have from God about every season that you're in. And so those are some things I'm working through, I'm writing through. All of that was off the cuff. I obviously have just some of my stuff labeled, but I'm more so just shared from the heart of some things that I would talk through. Now, one of the things that I'm working on is actually like writing all that out, making it really clear framework and really good recommended additional resources. Like a big part for next gen is them understanding their finances. So I'd make them go through, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. I'm 100% going to make my sons in high school go through Financial Peace University so that they're aware of debt and bills and all that stuff like that. And so money management is a big part. And so what would happen is in these programs, I would offer these kind of Leader 360 from Maxwell, Financial Peace, for any of those who additionally are hungry enough that are like, hey, that I want to be informed in the next level. Like you taught me the basics, but now I just want to go fully into personal development into that way. Like those would be some of the things that I would be discussing. So hopefully those are beneficial to you. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Maybe you could share this with someone that is young. Watch this with your teenagers. Have them watch it. Talk about it. Hey, where do you think you're good at? What do you think you already understand? What do you think you don't understand already? And again, this isn't infallible. Like this is fresh. It's something I've been working on for like 2 weeks. So the way I work is I normally don't release stuff like this until I've like really hashed it out. But you may have said like, you may be thinking to yourself, that sounded hatched out to me. Well, it's just in me right now. But hatch out to me would be it's on paper. It could be retaught by anyone, essentially is what it is. And so hopefully like next year I could have this stuff done and we can make this available to anyone that wants to take their teenagers through this, their young adults through it, or, you can be in any age of your life. You're like, man, I can, and then we'll have resources and points and all that kind of stuff like that would go much more deeper. But I hope that some of this conversation helped you today. If it did, share it with someone, send us a comment. Let us know. Send us a comment. Let us know, on all of our podcast pages, what resonated, what didn't resonate with you or whatever it is. But thanks for joining us today on Beyond the Letter. Hope you have a great week. God bless.